Well, hey, we're joined here with Thomas Eshelman, pitching coach for Fort Wayne TinCaps. Good to talk to you again, Esh. How are you?
Good man, good man. Good to be here. Glad to be with both of you.
All right,
Fantastic.
so we're excited to talk about what you've done as a pitching coach within the Padres organization. But first, I wanted to take a little bit of a step back because you had a long and fairly successful playing career. But you're a local boy. You grew up in Carlsbad, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, born and raised in San Diego and spent all my life there until college. Went to Cal State Fullerton.
So you went to a bunch of Padres games growing up. Did you look up to any of the players in particular?
Yeah, man. I grew up, Scott Linebrink era, Cleo Green, Sean Burrows, all those dudes. But one specifically, like it stands out to me day in, day out is Jake Peavy. So being able to watch that guy compete in his Cy Young year, and then also just we actually got blessed enough, my brother and I got blessed enough to sit four rows deep one game, and luckily Peavy was pitching, and just hearing him compete and yell and everything, like the whole aura about him was as advertised, and I just loved kind of featuring my game after that guy, and just to be able to put on the same jersey as him and the organization that he played in it's unbelievable. It's humbling.
Awesome. Well, so now Peavy's been around the organization a little bit. I know that he's not a Padres employee, but still they bring him in for ceremonial games and stuff. Have you had any chances to brush elbows with him?
Not yet, not yet. Hopefully, I know he goes to the fantasy camps a lot. I know he kind of gives back on that kind of end, but I have not been able to kind of reach out and talk to him. But luckily, I've been able to hang out with my second favorite Padre, probably 1A, 1B, was Trevor. Just to be able to talk to Trevor and spit stories and go back and forth with him, and also have his son be on my team, and just listen to stories that he has as well. So it's very cool to be a part of. And like I said, just someone like you guys said, it's my hometown. So to be able to coach in the organization in my hometown, it's awesome.
So you went to school at Cal State Fullerton. What was that whole recruiting process like? Were you recruited by a bunch of different schools? Did you have your pick, or was that where you wanted to go?
My mom and I got invited to the area code tryouts up in Santa Barbara at Westmont College. So I was up there throwing, and at that point, I think I had offers from Santa Barbara and San Diego State. And at that point in time, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And then the pitching coach at the time, Kirk Sarlos, called and asked if I could stop by Cal State Fullerton on the way back down home. He's now the head coach at TCU. So I came down for a visit. I was like, told my mom, like, this is a cool experience. We'll probably not get an offer, but it'll be a cool experience for us to kind of go check out the campus and everything. And then the day I walked into the office, Coach Vanderhook sent me an offer on the table, and I accepted the next morning. So it was a pretty quick decision that I made, but it was one that I'm glad I did.
Sarlos is a former big leaguer, right?
Yeah, I pitched with the Oakland A's for a little bit, Houston Astros. He's kind of been around, but yeah, he's a unbelievable person. He's done a really remarkable job at TCU, and he knows the game. Very patient, very calm, full of wisdom.
So I know Donovan loves draft day stories. Could you quickly tell us what that whole thing was like?
This one was pretty cool. Yeah, this one
Well,
was
you're
pretty
picked in
cool.
the second round. So
Woo!
did you think you might go first round?
It was so I was projected to go like third or fourth, and then I kind of went on a little spree late in the season in college, and I jumped up the draft boards pretty quick, and then there was possibility of first round, but yeah, it was more of like mid second, probably early third, and then we were in a super regional at the University of Louisville, and we were tied one game to one, and we were on that last day, and we were in extra innings, and I actually closed out the game. And as soon as I got the last out of the game, I got drafted by the Houston Astros. So it was a pretty cool experience. There was a ton of emotion poured over me, but it was something that I've always remembered.
I
So
darn it, because I was asked about the spread, who was with you, what kind did you get it catered? You were playing ball then. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it was a good time.
So now they've moved the draft, so it's after the baseball season is over. But that's got to be a lot of distraction going on because now you get drafted, you guys win the super regionals. Now you got to go on and keep competing. But meanwhile, you're like, wait, I just got drafted. I need to
Yeah.
negotiate for my bonus. I got to stay healthy. All of that, right?
I knew, yeah, it's kind of funny that you say that. I knew the first like five picks of the draft because my strength coach was kind of showing me information during the game. And after like the sixth pick, I went down to the bullpen and just kind of hung out, get my mind off things. And I'm not sure that really helped because there was a bunch of crazy Louisville fans hanging around the bullpen. So, but it did kind of get my mind away from the draft at least. So it was cool.
All right, so you're drafted by the Orioles, but you bounced around a little bit before you finally made your major league debut. Um, you were drafted by the Astros.
Yeah.
Then you went to the Phillies organization, then finally to Orioles. Did you run into adversity along the way? It seems like everybody winds up with a hiccup or a struggle,
Yeah.
something like that, and then they have to kind of fight their way out of it.
Yeah, so it was kind of smooth sailing in the first couple of years of my career. I mean, I went from double A, or I'm sorry, high A to triple A pretty quick, and I had success in triple A. And then the following year, I had disaster in triple A. I think I was like 2-13 with like a 5.7 in 2018. So 2019, it was kind of a roller coaster. I was in big league camp the year before, and then 2019, I returned to minor league camp. And then they made the decision to send me to extended spring training after camp, which I was kind of shell shocked by with some of the stuff that I've been through and some of the success that I had. So just kind of was frustrated a little bit, but then a spot opened up in double A and swallowed the pride and went out and started off rough and then kind of figured some stuff out mechanically, figured some stuff out mentally more probably than mechanically. And luckily, got sent to AAA that same year, and then I was ended up being traded. And that same year, I made my major league debut. So uh, there was a lot of layers to that. But yeah, it was way up and down. Flew cross country back home, contemplated just hanging them up there, and luckily I got a
Wow.
wife to tell me to shut up and get on the plane and go back out. So luckily I have her and ended up making my debut that year.
It's a pretty
Quit your
wild
sniveling,
trade.
get on the plane.
Yeah,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah. Not a lot of wives would say that, but yeah, she's pretty strong and told me to get back out there. So
Yeah, we all
So
need somebody
real
like that
quick,
in our
Roy,
back.
you were in Boise or Bowie?
no, so this was with the Phillies. So
Oh, with the
I
Phillies.
was with the
Okay.
Phillies and I got called up to Reading. And then I went Reading to Lehigh. And then I got traded, went to Norfolk for I think three starts, and then made my debut on July 1st.
All right.
That's a pretty wild trade. It was you along with Harold Arouse, Mark Appel, Brett Oberholzer, and Vince Velasquez to Philadelphia for Jonathan Arouse and Ken Giles. I got to say, the Phillies got the better part of that deal.
They got a World Series out of it, and that's exactly what they wanted. So that's why it's funny being a part of that trade is like just seeing some of this. I mean, obviously, we're not an organization afraid to trade. So, but just like kind of letting these guys know, it's like it's an opportunity for yourself to go out and put yourself an opportunity to make the big leagues your lifelong dream. So, I'm sure like there's a bunch of turmoil in this business, and you could wind up back in a Padres uniform faster than you know it. But yeah, no, it's being traded is definitely a scary thing, but at the same time, it's a good opportunity.
Mark Appel's story is a wild one to follow. Well,
Yeah.
first overall, I think first overall draft pick, and then pretty much off the map at one point, and then came back and finally made his major league debut. And he's
Yeah.
been pretty open and forthcoming about all that on Twitter. One thing we like to touch on is the mental health side of things, both on and off the field. And boy, he's been through all of that and then some.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of expectations coming in the first round. Like you gotta make the organization look good. You gotta make sure that you're making yourself look good. And I think that's something that was in the back of his mind. I won't speak for him, but having gone through it just a little bit, like it's definitely something that is weight of the world on your shoulders a little bit. And I think that he finally just kind of released it all and was able to come back and have fun with what he wanted to do, and he ended up doing it. So I think that's part of the journey. I think that's part of having the right people to talk to and put yourself in the right mind space to go out there and compete every single day.
So when you get drafted, and they're looking at you, how much are they looking at the person more than just a player? I know they can see the stats, they see you pitch, they know the performance. How do they dig into the person that you are, or your coachability? Do they ask you personally? Do they set you aside? Do they ask friends around you? How does that kind of work? I was interested in how, because the makeup is so much more important these days. When they draft a player, how's he going to command with failure? How is he going to do when he does well? What was that for you?
Yeah, so there was a bunch of organizations that kind of came in and ran different tests. It was different. I think it was called S2 testing. But yeah, there was a bunch of different tests that I would take, questionnaires, and they would kind of run into a system and see what kind of person I was based off of these tests. And then other organizations would just talk to me and just kind of see where I was at. And then obviously every organization did their background, coaches, players, family, professors, old coaches from high school, teachers from high school, and they just watch you. They'll literally watch you. They'll go to a game and watch you in the dugout and see how you interact around your teammates, and they won't watch any of the game. So there's a lot of eyes on you at all times as a player, especially as a player when you're about to get drafted. But yeah, it was definitely an interesting time. There was a ton of voices to be talked to, and but yeah, it was fast paced. That's for sure.
Like a Myers-Briggs for baseball players.
Yeah.
So you finally made your major league debut with the Orioles. You pitched for them a little bit in 2019, 20, and 21. What was that whole experience like? Was that like a coronation dream come true, or was it like a grind that caught you by surprise?
Yeah, in 2019 when I made my debut, it was something that like luckily I've had teammates that their dads played in the big leagues. I played with Mark Leiter Jr. And his dad had a 13-year career in the big leagues with multiple teams. I played with Brandon Liebrandt. His dad was Charlie Liebrandt, so I've been able to talk with both of them sporadically, but just hearing them talk and the advice that they gave me, which Mark Leiter's dad gave me probably the best advice is go out there and look at the entire stadium before you go. Um, Step off the rubber and look at the entire background before you get back in and look at the glove. So it's almost kind of like a little bit of a cliche, like what's that movie? For the Love of the Game.
Yeah,
Uh, what is it called? Like the mechanism, clear the mechanism. That's what it is.
clear the mechanism. Yeah.
Um, but honestly, like the text he wrote me was it's probably not appropriate for this podcast, but he that just kind of like eased my nerves a little bit. But just hearing the announcer say making his major league debut was uh, something that really like clicked it in for me. And like, all right, this is real. So, but yeah, it's the whole experience was a whirlwind. It goes so fast. And it's something that I will cherish. I've made relationships up there that I still talk to these guys to this day, and I commend their success every single day because it's so fun to watch from TV and see them having success up there. But yeah, it's an enjoyable ride, and I was glad that I was able to be a part of it.
Well, and I watch a lot of debuts, and I hear people say that advice is like, okay, look around the stadium, kind of soak it in. I keep a sharp eye on those guys, and I don't see them go. I see them kind of look at the glove, because there's the TV, there's a camera on those guys, and you don't see them step back and go like, okay.
I saw
Let's
Adley
go.
Rushman do that. He's the one guy I can think of that really kind of stood back and took a look around before he finally started.
Yeah, well, luckily mine was Tampa, so it wasn't that really hard to look around.
Right.
If I was in New York, I probably wouldn't look around. So,
Ooh, savage. All
Ugh.
right. So we're going to get to your transition to coaching, but I wanted to kind of get into your background a little bit because I have a feeling all of these experiences and things that you've gone through and people that you've interacted with are part of what have prepared you for coaching. And we've talked to a lot of pitchers that when we say, okay, who's somebody that's really helped you in the organization, your name is the first one out of their mouth. So after you made your debut, played with the Orioles for a couple of years, you came over to the Padres as a minor league free agent. And then you pitched in San Antonio and El Paso. So what was that process like? That was your first time. So you were released by the Orioles, free agent again with them. And then this was your first time signing as a free agent with a different team, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I was technically I got DFA'd, and then that was the year of the strike that we did. I shouldn't say we, as the Players Association did.
Right.
And then technically I was a big league free agent, so I was unable to talk to teams up until I think it was like February something. So I was kind of caught in the water a little bit late. Couldn't talk to teams, couldn't really like try to re-sign or kind of advertise myself. Um, but luckily, I have contact with our pro scout of the San Diego Padres, and he reached out to me asking if I was ready to go, if I was built up, and that the organization needed a little bit of depth help in Double A, and kind of opportunity presented myself. And as I was sitting on my couch, and I said absolutely. So, uh, yeah, I was presented that, and then went to San Antonio. But ecstatic that I could drive to spring training. That was probably the best part about signing with a team like this because I spent my entire career on the East Coast.
East
So,
Coast.
so being able to drive to spring training was probably the coolest thing I ever experienced in my career. But yeah, got to go to San Antonio. Was a part of a good group there. A lot of sprinkled in big leaguers on that team. Even one that helped us out in that run in 22 with Brandon Dixon. So. But yeah, it was a pretty cool group. Great coaching staff, Pete Zamora, Philip Wellman, and then Shane Robinson. All those guys were unbelievable to be a part of, be around, and then getting sent back up and down from AAA and AA, just helping the org where I could help. I mean, I had the mindset going into this where I was going to help my hometown team to be able to have a championship, and I didn't really. I checked my ego at the door and made sure I wanted to help the team.
Oh,
Okay,
that's
so
awesome.
you mentioned Philip Wellman. Um, we need to hear a couple of good Philip Wellman stories. Make them PG. You can bleep out the F words, or
Yeah.
just we love this guy, and I love when he's in Double A because he's one of those, the kind of manager that he won't color code it. Like he's like, this is what you need to do, kid, and this is what needs to happen. And it's
Yeah.
kind of a matter of fact, kind of sense of just the way he holds himself. Do you have any good stories there for us?
Uh, there's probably one that I would say is PG. But first of all, like like he is PG. Like it's funny that he's got the video out there, obviously, but he's honestly like doesn't say he's like a church mouse during the game. He's just watching it until he sees something that like ticks him, and then he's off. But there was one where we were kind of shorthanded in our first full week playing during the season, and he came up to me. It was my start. It was a doubleheader. He came up to me and he's like, "Hey, can you see me in my office?" I was like, "Yeah, no problem." I just got to the field and he's like, "Hey, a little shorthand in the pin. I need you to go 7 today." I was like, "Yeah, no problem. You got it." Uh, so it was like leash was off. You're going 7. And then after I ended up doing it, and then after the game, he's like, "There's a beer in my office." So just that kind of stuff, like old school, Skip, like kind of Bull Durham kind of esque. But it was funny because I kind of felt like Crash Davis on that team a little bit, just kind of journeyman been around and
Right.
just being able to be with some of the prospects that we've had in our org, and but it was fun. It was a cool experience to be around him and play for him.
That's
Okay,
one of the
you
things
mentioned
about being kind of the journeyman in Double A. How you carry yourself there is how I'm sure a lot of the players look at you and kind of like, okay, God, he's 27, 26, in Double A. What is he still doing? He's still showing up early. He's still doing the work. He's still doing everything. Man, I should be doing that. Do you kind of feel like you maybe mentored some of those guys being the kind of journeyman?
Yeah, I think a lot of it came down to myself being through the ups and downs. I mean, Double A's a level now where guys like obviously you guys have seen it where struggles start to kind of creep into people's careers and on how they respond to them is very important. And I think that's something that I was able to kind of show them. I would even get my ass kicked a couple times and I'd get back up and get back rolling on my routine. So I think that's something that was able to be apparent to those guys. But like I told them every single day, I was like, "You guys have better stuff than me," and I played in the big leagues. Like it's really not that important to have it's important to have a strong mindset when it comes to your stuff as well. And I think that that was important for them to know. And um, luckily, there was a couple of them that have made their debuts so far, and I know that a lot of them are making the right steps to make their debuts coming up.
Okay, so Donovan was just talking about being the older player, but now you're the younger coach. You've had guys in your dugout that are older than you,
Right.
players.
Yeah,
Daniel Camarena comes to mind.
yeah. That was funny. It was a short stint, but yeah, it was funny being around him. I think Cienfuegos, if I'm not mistaken, is close to my age
Yeah.
as well. Uh, but yeah, no, it's definitely interesting. Even in that first year coaching, it was like uh, I would say I kept my head above water barely. But yeah, it's definitely a full go into mindset and mechanics and PFPs, and it's a whole lot. There's a lot in the bucket, and it's super individualized per person. But yeah, it's definitely making sure you're making connections and communication and remembering what you say to guys because it'll come
Right.
up.
Well, okay, so I just kind of skipped ahead a little bit, but okay, so you're playing in double A, a little bit of triple A in 2022. Did you see that the writing was kind of on the wall that you were toward the end of your playing career? And how did those conversations come about? Did you have an idea that coaching was going to be in your future?
Yeah, I mean, um, when you're kind of bouncing back and forth between double A and triple A, you kind of see the writing on the wall a little bit. And again, that kind of goes back to what I said earlier. It's about understanding the business, and that's part of it. But luckily, I was able to get a job in that last year to be able to play and figure some stuff out, and I did. And this job was able to be kind of falling in my lap. So um, another Welly story that's funny, actually. They have these postseason like where do you see this guy going like next level next year? And he wrote pitching coach for mine instead of putting a level. So uh, that kind of trickled into this as well. But yeah, had a good conversation with Riley Westman as I was driving 10 hours back from El Paso to San Diego. And it was a lot of good timing for me to kind of reflect on my career, reflect on what I want to do in the future, and had good conversations with my wife before I made the decision, and
Yeah.
um, it just was felt right. I was kind of tired of going back and forth between towns, not knowing where I'm going to be, making accommodations. I got two boys now, so for myself to know where I'm going to be for a full year is
Yeah.
pretty important for myself. So just kind of made the decision as a family, and it's been a great decision so far, and I'm excited for what can come in the future as well.
So real quick, before we get on to the players, my question is, so then do you have is there an orientation for from player to coach, or is there a coach's orientation where they're like, okay, this is our philosophy, this is what we want to do, or do you kind of already know that being in the organization, and how does that kind of work, or you just show up and you start hitting fungos to the pitchers, or
Yeah, there was a like a three-step process to that. Obviously, I had to go through an interview process of um, making sure I was a good fit. They brought me out to Instructs for a week, and I kind of went through the steps and kind of threw me into the fire, see how I'd react. Got to coach my first bullpen, and they kind of watched how I did it. I watched my process. So. Yeah, that was the kind of the first step. Second step was that first off season that I had as a coach. I was in Arizona probably every other month in that off season, and I was going to camps, strength camps, pitching camps. We would have education meetings during those times, just strictly about uh, the verbiage we use,
right?
all this kind of stuff. So there was definitely an onboarding kind of situation of what is expected, what do we need to accomplish, and then spring training was kind of like the last step, which is like, hey, this is what we're going to expect at affiliates. This is what if we come into town or when we come into town, this is what we want to see. So just kind of all that spring training was kind of like the last little tune up before heading out to Lake
Yeah.
Elsinore here.
So, as a player in that final year, as you were going back and forth between those levels, as the guy that had been there, and you know, did you find yourself in conversations with the younger players where you felt like you were more of a coach than a player at times?
Yeah, I would. I know there was a certain instance when I came back from El Paso to San Antonio. Got to speak with Nolan Watson for a little bit. Just kind of picked his brain, see where he was at, and then kind of go from there. But talk about a guy with unbelievable talent and unbelievable year. I think it was 2 years ago. But yeah, no, I just uh, kind of set myself in those situations. They would kind of come with me to question or come to me with questions and bounce some things off me, see what I thought, and that's kind of how I've been at the end of part of my career. Especially in like Baltimore too, just kind of going up and down. AAA guys, obviously, there's a bunch of prospects getting called up in AAA. Started kind of trickling into the big leagues at that time, and just being able to talk about situations. Hey, if you're a long man that day, this is what's expected. Hey, when you go up, this is what you need to wear. All this kind of stuff. So just being a source of knowledge for guys, just kind of being somebody that's like a soundboard for them to bounce things off of and see what they need to know and what they don't need to do, etc.
So you were in Fort Wayne this year. It's a little cold the first month of the season, so I'm sure you were giving a lot of advice on what to wear to the guys. Hey, make sure you're wearing some tights, got the sleeves on, throw a beanie in your bag just in case, right?
Oh yeah, there's some tricks I had when playing in the Eastern League, opening up in Portland, Maine every year. So we got snowed out actually my first year up there in Reading, in Portland. But yeah, no, if you're not playing, it's definitely like put Vaseline on your arms to close your pores up so that your pores don't get cold and all that kind of stuff. But hot tubs were definitely the important factor when coming out of the game.
It's funny when I talk to a lot of players in Elsinore, I always ask about, hey, your next step is Fort Wayne. Have you ever seen snow before? Like, no, I haven't never. I don't know what to do.
It was pretty quick, honestly. I mean, it was like the first 3 weeks were pretty chilly. That first opening game up in Midland, Michigan at Great Lakes, that was cold. Uh, Everyone was fighting to get around the heater, but yeah, no, it was I thought it was at least a quick little winter for us up there, but it hit us hard and but yeah, it was other than that, it was a beautiful spot to be able to be for a summer and I was glad I was there.
Speaking about Fort Wayne, I just want to give a quick shout out. Congratulations to Sam Lewis, Swirly clubhouse manager who just became a father for the first time. So happy to see that on his Instagram. And everybody has wonderful things to say about that guy. I've only spent a little bit of time around him, but everybody just loves that dude.
Ah, terrible person. Doesn't do a thing for you, anything. But nah, I'm just kidding. Unbelievable person, dude. He every day it's like, what can I do for you? Loves his guys, man. He'll fight night and day for his guys, and to be able to be a part of that along with him is a special spot. Everyone there, the whole support staff there is they'll do anything for you. They know everything about you. They know what you want, all this kind of stuff. So, just like I said, it's an unbelievable spot to spend a summer, and luckily I was able to spend that with them there.
Well, hell, I thought
Okay,
you were going to
so
talk, give a shout out to Mike Nutter for being
Uh,
the person
oh
of the
yeah,
year for
Citizen of the
the
Year.
Talk about
yeah.
another terrible person. No, no, yeah,
He's
Nutter, yeah.
Nutter's like we talked to him and he's like, yeah, I'll get one of the coaches to come on during the season. I'm like, we I don't think we can do that. I mean, maybe you could like. He's like, we'll come on every week.
No, oh yeah, Nutter's great, man. I was lucky enough to get an invite to Nutter's Monday basketball league. So we were able to play at the church every Monday for a little bit. But yeah, no, Nutter's unbelievable, man. He'll do anything for you. Yeah, I mean, my family came out, was getting tickets for him, getting comp um gear up in the souvenir shop. So he's just great hospitality and great person.
So I'm gonna try to imagine Mike Nutter, the Hooper. Does he talk mad trash in that church?
Never. No, no.
Can't
He's
imagine him doing anything like
He's
that.
the ultimate competitor, man. He wants to win at everything, and yeah, no. Luckily, I was on his team. I think he was smart. He put myself on his team, so that we would have a good relationship going into work on Tuesday. Uh, but no, yeah, he's a good baller too. His son is actually very good as well. There's a group of like three guys that were in college that would just take games over, and the rest of us were faking injuries on the side.
All right, so one more question as the transition to coaching. So you were accustomed to your preparation, your routine, what your role is that day, your, your personal situation. Now you've got a shift and you've got 12 guys to manage. You've got people from all these different backgrounds, people that are wired all kinds of different ways. How did you learn to adapt to all of that? I'm sure that's still something you're trying to figure out.
Yeah, I think like you said, the more you're prepared every single day, the better it's going to be. And I think that that's kind of something that I pride myself on is like, okay, what's on this palette today? Like, what are we going to do? And then how am I going to do it? And I think that that's kind of part of the reason why some of the guys trust me is that I truly know what their preparation is and how to get them to where they want to be. I think that's something that's very important per individual and the more you know, the better it's going to be in the long run. So I think getting there early and understanding what's going to be needed for that day, how did we do in the day before, all this kind of stuff. So a lot that kind of goes into that. But like you said, the more you kind of put yourself in a good spot to know what's going on, the better it's going to be.
Now, guys move back and forth. When somebody comes up from Lake Elsinore, for example, do you make a phone call to the guys down there and try to figure out, how's this guy wired? What's his situation? What is his routine?
Yeah, luckily they do a really good job of altering us in spring training of just trying to know every guy and
Oh, nice.
seeing what bullpens and all this kind of stuff and being able to watch them, see their process, see how they operate, and go from there. But yeah, I do make a phone call. Luckily, or I'm sorry, we do have like a process of like the pitching coach calls the other pitching coach, hey, this is what this guy's doing. This is his process. This is what he's been doing as of late. This is his last 3 game progression. So there's definitely a system that we use with that. But yeah, it's definitely important to know how they are wired before we get them.
All right. Well, let's get into it. The first kid I want to talk about, Braden Nett. He seemed to, undrafted free agent from the middle of nowhere, Illinois, I believe. He
Missouri.
took a really big step this year. I watched him, we talked to him before he went to the Arizona Fall League, went to the Arizona Fall League in 23. This year, he just seemed to shoot up out of nowhere. He took a really big step. The velocity's there, but what I was really impressed with was the secondary step. How did that secondary step kind of develop with him?
Unbelievable. I think he, like you said, it, the fastball is electric. And then he started throwing the secondary stuff in zone at a high level, which then had hitters on their heels because they couldn't just sit on the fastball. But yeah, unreal kid, super good athlete. I think I remember hearing you guys have him on and talk about basketball and all this kind of stuff. And tremendous basketball player. So it just kind of one of those things where you let him like run around, his athletic self. But yeah, I think the more we kind of got the simplified the off speed and understand our process with that, then everything started playing up and the results were shown. And he went on a tear at the end of the season there and got the call up to Double A and had a pretty decent start in Double A. The command wasn't as sharp as we wanted it to be, but that transition also is different and not a lot of people know, but the minor league ball to the big league ball is a little bit different. So, but yeah, it's something, especially with his stuff, it's going to move 10 times more, which his stuff moving 10 times more is very difficult to control.
That's right.
Okay, so you said
In Double A, the ball is the major league ball. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why they did away with it a little bit ago. I know that that was such a big thing when I was playing was guys getting called up to the big leagues. In AAA, they had a minor league ball, and the big league ball is different. So guys would start throwing bullpens with a big league ball just to get used to it. So it's a little bit of difference, but not something that we hang our hat on for excuses, but just making sure that we take the right steps to be able to get that difference.
you said simplify the off-speed stuff. Was that a matter of mechanics or approach?
Approach. At times there'd be like his stuff's so good that he can literally throw anything at all times. So it's just mainly kind of just understanding, okay, reading swings, reading situations, what's working that day, what's not working that day, all that kind of stuff. So more just kind of simplistic stuff of understanding more of external stuff and internal stuff. And he grew a ton. He understood a lot more is still learning, and that's what's scary about it is that he's a guy that's still learning how to be his best version of himself, and he's just starting to get to Double A. So when that, I mean, this game, you always want us to keep learning, but when he gets a good grasp of what he wants to do, it's going to be very scary.
Well, and then so he had the 5 starts in San Antonio, but then he went over to the Senadoras in the Puerto Rican League. Was that mainly just to kind of see how his stuff plays with a little more advanced hitters, or is it to get more innings? Because he only threw, I think, 64 innings this year.
Yeah, I think that was a little bit more of an innings count kind of thing to kind of up that a little bit more, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But good experience for him in general. He was able to go down there and be in that kind of atmosphere and experience a different country and but yeah, no, it's something that he was kind of contemplating, but I was glad he able to go down there and experience that.
You never played international off-season ball. Was there ever the opportunity to do it, or was it just that the timing was never right?
Yeah, so the early part of my career, I was actually offered to go to lycée, um, but I was I was under the prospect status at that time, and the Phillies said no. Um, but yeah, it just never was the right timing. I got offered to go down to Puerto Rico, and I just had my son. So there was different situations that kind of popped up, but just never the right timing. So, but yeah, I would have loved. I love it down there. It's awesome. The guys down there love the game, and the fans are electric. I had the opportunity to go down there with the Astros. We did a little bridge kind of trip. There was 5 of us that went down there, and we spent the nights at the complex for 7 days, and we went to games and did drills with the guys and everything like that. So yeah, I love the DR. It's a great spot.
All right, so finally we got a chance to see Jagger Haynes healthy, and see what he can do. Um, he talked a lot about the mental side of the game because he would. I remember one inning he threw almost a immaculate inning, and then the next inning just like walked 5 guys, and just like kind of the wheels come off. Um, how do how do you coach that
Yeah,
when
I
that
think
happens?
again, it's a little bit more the simplistic style. I think for him, it was understanding what we needed to accomplish instead of looking at the big picture, more looking at step by step. And I think it was more of like, what's your goal today? How are you going to accomplish it? And how's that going to help you towards the next start? So for him, it was like more of winning his 0-0 and 1-1 counts. Like that was our ever since the three kind of starts to the beginning of the year, that was our process every time he took the mound, and that was like he got so sick of it towards the end of the year, but it was something that was just stated in his mind of like, okay, I'm just gonna win this count. So for him, it's more of like understanding the little things and how the little things add up to the big picture, and for him, like the stuff definitely kind of climbed this year. Hopefully we can add in like the velocity towards this stuff that we put a step forward with this year and but yeah, good mix this year. Changeup was off the charts. Changeup was obviously his equalizer pitch in every count per every hitter, left or right. And his also his ability to kind of slow the game down and pick some dudes off this year was really good to see. And obviously adding in that like weapon to your back pocket is as a left-hander is easy because you can walk a guy and then get a guy out and then you're not wasting any pitches.
Yeah, so that's something that working at the lower minors, you're working on a lot of that stuff on the mechanics, on being quick to the plate, how to remove excess movement, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a big thing that we're emphasizing with these guys is just making them baseball players, making them winning baseball players, and understanding situations and understanding how to pitch in those situations. You have a free base open with 2 outs. You're facing the 4 hitter that's dominated us all week. Like you can pitch around him, use that base, and face the 5 hitter that hasn't hit anything off of us. So uh, just kind of experience and making sure that they learn from everything. And I always thought, and I still think that having my starters next to me in the dugout and just talking about situations that way they can understand um, what happened in front of them, like if it was positive or negative, and then take it into their own game and making sure that they have the knowledge that they can take the step forward into their next start. So and then obviously talking to relievers the next day of like, hey man, how'd you feel? What could we have done better? All this kind of stuff. So that's something that I really took into my own game when I played, and I learned a lot that way, and I think that these guys kind of take that into their own game as well.
What you said about winning the 0001 count, you may think that you wore that out with him, but he brought it up when we talked to him a couple weeks ago. So it's sank in.
Good. I'm glad. I hope he still falls asleep and just says, "Oh, and ones."
Well, and with Jagger, I remember talking to Zamo several years back when he talked about Luis Patino, and he talked about this baby rattlesnake. Like this kid's got venom, but he just doesn't know how to like. He just doesn't know when to give it, when to take it back, and just kind of like use that raw talent to his advantage. And it's minor league baseball. You're developing that skill as you go. But I love that with Zamo with the baby rattlesnake.
Oh yeah, leave it to Zamo to give you guys an analogy with baby rattlesnake. But yeah, no, I think he took big steps in his maturity this year. I was really happy for him, and I think that the sky's the limit. But it's just making sure that he's pushing himself every single day to be able to achieve that.
All right. So hey, Bradley, how do you pronounce that? Is it Bradley
Andrew
Rodriguez?
Rodriguez, yeah.
He has shot up the system with an electric fastball. Um, you know, is he pushing a chance in 25, do you think?
I don't know. I don't get paid enough to make those calls. But yeah, being able to be around him for the time I had him was great. I mean, uh, when he first got to us, he kind of struggled a little bit. There was a couple outings when we were facing the Great Lakes, and they came in. They got us a little bit. I hope we face some of those guys next year so we can return the favor. But we it was just strictly landing the secondary. I think that's the biggest thing is in high A is making sure that you can have the show us the ability that you can land your off speed and zone. And once he did that, it was sky's the limit. So I mean, like you guys saw, I mean, he was taking the ball, he was punching out dudes left and right. Being able to go 99 to 101 and then come back and throw 85-mile-an-hour changeup is pretty stupid. Um,
Right.
See that a whole lot. But yeah, it's for him, it was fun to watch and it was really electric.
All right. So Isaiah Lowe started the year in Lake Elsinore and made his way up to Fort Wayne. He's looked really good as well. Yeah.
Yeah, big time. I love Zay. I had Zay. I was lucky enough to have Zay for the first few starts of the season, my first year. I unfortunately had that shoulder thing go on, and then he busted his butt in rehab, and eventually got back up to high A this year, and uh, had a great year in low A. Dominated the level, really put them in a good position to go out and win playoffs this year. Luckily, I was able to grab him up in high A and didn't skip a beat. So yeah, no ultra competitor, probably one of the best competitors we have. Um, just watching that guy with the PFP work that he does and diving for balls, not to get in dugouts and stuff like that. Just the mental capacity that he has to do that kind of stuff, just leave his feet and do it for the team, is something that you can't really teach. So just for him to be really good at what he does is compete and then just make sure that we kind of stay focused on what we want to accomplish and be in zone at a high level with everything. And he was a great person to be around.
Nice. So Emmanuel Pinales, what another name is that? How do you pronounce that last name?
And Manuel Pinales, yeah.
Manuel Pinales.
Yeah.
It's funny. I've been in the kitchens my whole career, and I still can't speak a lick of Spanish
You just call
or
him Pina. Yeah, I call him Pina.
right. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had a little bit of he struggled at times, but there's a lot there to Draymond as well with Emmanuel.
Yeah, no, I mean, another great year. Another guy that I love being around. Every day, I mean, that guy will run through a wall for you if you told him to. So super, super good, teachable kind of guy. Adaptability was great. We had a tough stretch there for I think like three starts, like you said, and then we kind of bounced back and finished on the right note at the end of the year. But super ultra consistent. Record didn't really reflect him and how he was all year with how he pitched. Pitched for every Tuesday there for a while and put us in a position to win each and every time he went out. So I loved watching him compete. Some of the times it was like, I don't know what you're doing, but it's working. But at that same time, making sure we take a step back and say, listen, like I know it's working now, but as we look forward, like in double A and triple A and hopefully the big leagues, like we need to start kind of nipping this in the butt now. So I think that's kind of what maybe was the little bump in the road, but for us to figure that out, it was good.
And how do you have these guys kind of focus on the process more than just strikeouts in innings pitched, and kind of let them see the bigger picture?
Yeah, I think that's something that is struggled upon for myself as well. Like I want them to see success right away in front of them, and obviously a lot of us do. But I think at the times where it's like, okay, have them have success, and then kind of when it kind of hits them in the face, it's like, okay, what happened? Like, and just kind of take a step back and understand, like it might be working for you. Like you might get a ton of chase right now, but as you face better hitters in the next levels, like they're not going to swing at that. Your walk rate's going to go up really, really fast. So it's like, okay, how can we dominate the zone? How can we dominate certain parts of the zone for us to have success with your fastball, with your breaking ball, whatever it is. So I think the more we kind of focus on that aspect of things, the more it's going to be more applicable to them, and they'll have a better understanding of what they need to accomplish.
Nice.
So, kind of along the same vein, um, hopefully in the not too distant future, you'll be up in Double A, where you've got some different environments. So at home in San Antonio, you may have the wind blowing in. Somebody could be getting pounded, rockets to right field that are getting caught for outs. And they look back at the stat line, they feel good about what they did. And then the next week they go out to Amarillo and they got some soft pop flies that would be easy outs, and they're, hitting the freeway out past the fence. How do you normalize that for a pitcher, as Donovan was getting, to separate the results from the process?
I think it's more of did they throw strikes? And they did. I think that's something that we I've never experienced, but being around guys that have been in that situation and pitching in Amarillo a lot, with Zamo with his staff, and then I mean JJ Jimmy Jones with his staff. Just talking with those guys, taking information from them as well as like, is your process being in zone at a high level? Okay, were you in zone at a high level? Great, that's what the process was, and you accomplished it. So I think at that point in time, results are not always like uh, box score based. They're more of like, hey, did we do our job of being in zone at a high level? And we were. So I think that's something that I've kind of taken into what we do at Fort Wayne. I don't know who said Fort Wayne was a hitter's park or a pitcher's park. It's definitely a hitter's park at times, and I think that we made good pitches that got hit last year. I thought the league was pretty good last year. I thought Dayton had a really good team. Lake
Yeah.
County had a good team. I think Great Lakes was good for a little bit until they called their guys up to Double A, and we made good pitches. We were pretty relatively young on our staff, and kind of easing their minds of, hey, listen, like, how did you get to that pitch, or what was your process, and like, did you see who was next? All this kind of stuff. So it's just mainly kind of making sure they take a step back and see the results or see the process of how they got to that point. And maybe like we need to readjust the pitch, or we make sure that we are better in the zone, or all that kind of stuff. So I think it's long story short, I think it's more of like just understanding what your end goal is, like what your system is to get to where you want to be.
So Donovan's been asking you about all these pitchers, but you've had some pretty good catchers to work with this year.
Yeah.
Anthony Villar and Colton Bender are both hardworking, smart guys. And then Ethan Salas, what he lacks in experience, he definitely makes up for in aptitude. How have those guys been helpful to you as a pitching coach?
In my past 2 years, I've had nothing but great catchers. I honestly, Linares, Duarte, um, I mean Villar, um,
Brandon
yeah,
Venezuela
yeah. I didn't have him. No, he
didn't
was.
know.
I missed him, but yeah, no, he's great to work with at spring training too. But yeah, Bender, Salas, and then Villar again. So yeah, it's just an unbelievable core group of guys. Kopak, Addison Kopak. Um, so unbelievable guys. They want to learn. They want to be there for the pitcher. They want to like fight for the pitcher. Um, I mean, Villar is off the field, like talking to guys left and right. Salas is going out to dinner with these guys, talking, trying to get communications, relationships with them. Bender's always working his butt off in the bullpen, talking to these guys, what they want to do. And they're coming to me too, like, hey, what's the plan on this guy? How do we get Hector Rodriguez out? So it's like just that kind of stuff is like the core values that those guys have are is great. and even like the Duartes and Linares of the world too. I mean, those guys would come and talk to me all the time, and they knew what I expected, and I think that's great. I think that's part of being a catcher is almost being like the second pitching coach on the field. So I think those two guys and the whole group of them like unbelievable to work with. I loved it. I love every time of it.
Now, we saw in the playoffs when Joe Musgrove got hurt that something wasn't quite right. And from where I was sitting, I didn't see it because I don't know his stuff that well as many times as I've watched him. Have you seen any situations like that where a catcher saw something, not necessarily with an injury, but they were able to kind of stop things, go out, reset, and check in with their guy?
Villar does that a ton. And Salas started picking up on it too. And then Bender did it all the time as well. So I guess all three of them did it. And they did a really good job of it. I think we we're blessed to have a bunch of good guys to pick up on things. And I think the more, again, kind of having them sit next to me during the game and them seeing like my reactions toward things, like they started picking on them too. And they would like go and do it during the game. So there was times where they would be already out there and I was thinking about going out there, where I'd let them. And then there was other times where I was like, okay, I want to get my message across. I'm going to go out there as well. So, I kind of like them to figure out stuff on their own. I think that's part of their system and their process of like truly figuring it out. That way they can make the adjustments on their own. But at the other times, making sure that we're doing the right thing and nipping in the butt right away.
It's got to be hard to sometimes sit back and let that process happen when I'm sure you want to step in there and do it.
When it's more early in the game, I'll let them do it. But once later in the game, it's time to it's time to try to win. We're gonna go win.
All right. Well, this is something that I noticed, and there were less injuries this year, and throughout the whole system. Um, was it just a good year for no injuries, or is that maybe a little bit of a change in the process of training or preparation, or is it just one of those years where you guys lucked out?
I think it's a little bit of everything. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of luck that's involved in this game at times, but I think you put yourself in a good position to have that luck. Is something that uh, people can hang their hat on. So, but yeah, our strength and conditioning department was unbelievable this year, along with our athletic training department as well. So, I know those two departments worked tooth and nail with us to make sure every guy made every start and every reliever made every appearance. So just their daily uh, lifting schedules and their daily rehab and recovery and all this kind of stuff was on point, and just the communication aspect between us and them was, uh, I think, something that was like drilled into our heads going forward, and I think that's what we did. So I mean, hats off to them, and hats off to our leaders to make sure that we have open comms with everybody. So.
Well, to go back here a second, because as Jagger Haynes' season went on, I'm like, okay, that's where he hit his pitching. That's where his inning limit was last year, and he blew past it. So it seemed like every week we're talking like, all right, this is probably gonna be Jagger's last start. I mean, I assured they were gonna like, and we talked to him. He's like, no, every time, I was feeling good, and Ash was telling me that I was looking good, and we are gonna keep going, and I'm going like, you're gonna hurt yourself, man. We don't.
He was good, man. I mean, he finished the year strong. That was something that was his main thing was that was his goal was to finish the year healthy, and he put a ton of effort into it. He put a ton of time into it as well. And like I said, luckily, Lauren Gottschall and Chandler Craig worked with me as well, our trainer and our strength coach, and we made sure Jag was good for every start. So if that was to take away something here and there, throw less pitches in a bullpen, whatever, and that was his main goal. So he ended up we changed to a 5-man rotation too. He ended up making 2 starts in 1 week too. I was proud of him. I thought that might be like, hey, I don't know, but we obviously do a good job of that, of limiting pitches in the first time and then upping the pitch count in the second time, or vice versa. So just understanding of like 2 weeks or 2 times in 1 week is something that's new for them. So it's just making sure that we're doing it the smart way.
Okay, we really appreciate you coming on, Ash, and talking. I got a few more,
Yeah.
but real quick, you Darvish made that that start, and I watched that start. How fun is it for the pitching coach to have a major leaguer to come out and you're like, oh, that's what a major league fastball looks like, or that's what a major league curveball looks like.
I think it was more of the major league like his step by step before the game to his pregame. It was he flew in. I think his start was on a Thursday. He flew in on I think like Tuesday night, and then Wednesday he was with us all day. And just seeing him prepare for that start, he prepared like it was for the Game 7 of the World Series. And I think for every one of my guys to see that was something that was special. And I remember even texting Ruben Niebla, like, dude, that is awesome to be around for a full 162. But yeah, no, he had his I won't go through his whole thing, but he had like his pregame going on. Night before he had a nice meal, and then the day of it was just like game mode. And yeah, luckily he got out of there and was ready to pitch for us in the playoffs this year. I was very proud of him pitching in that playoff. I'll tell you that. I mean I'm not even his pitching coach, and to see him go out there and do that, I was like my heart was pumping for him. So, but yeah, no, I think it was one of those things where it was great for our guys to see that kind of preparation.
And he got lit up. The kid hit
I left that part out of it on purpose, but
dead center. A big boy too. I don't know if he's a high prospect, but he hit a tank off him. And I remember when he walked off the mound at the end of the start, he looked over at Dayton and was like, thank you for allowing me to be here. It wasn't like you competed. I felt it was more like, thank you for letting me be here. And then and then walked off the mound. I know he bought spread for both teams,
yeah.
but just the concept, I just can't stress how much that guy is such a consummate professional.
Oh, pro's pro. It's unbelievable. I mean, like you said, he bought 2 nights worth of spread for both teams, and it was good spread too. And then he jazzed out of there. But yeah, it was unbelievable work with. Like I said, just seeing him have success in the big leagues, and you know why. I mean, like that's why right there. So you never know what's coming next. Everyone's hunting for your job, and the more you kind of prepare and put in the work for that, that's what's going to get you to stay there for a long time.
So my wife and I, we sit by the bullpen at Petco Park. We got season tickets, and so I watch every pitcher's warm up routine. And I've noticed when you is out there doing his long toss and his stretching and all that, he has earbuds in. And I've always wanted to know, what is he listening to? It could be Slayer or Enya, or do you know what it is he listens
I
to?
I did not. No, I stayed away from him. I let him do whatever he needed to do to get ready for that start. Um, yeah, but that was also a funny thing too. He's got a million pitches. So for us, we don't have pitch com down in high A. So Ethan was trying to operate his whole sign system, and that
With
was
five
something
fingers.
with yeah, with 5 fingers to pitch 10 pitch or whatever. But yeah, no, that was also a funny story from that too. But yeah, no, I saw him put the earbuds in too, and I hung out by his translator the entire time, and I just kind of was like, what does he need? Because his translator knows him very well, so it's just kind of like, what does he need? What do I need to do? So, but yeah,
So at any point the last couple of years, have you looked down the dugout? Do you see any future coaches among the players that you've worked with?
um, yeah, I probably do, but I never want to say like you guys said earlier. I won't ever say like he's gonna be a coach because obviously I want every one of these guys to make the big leagues. So,
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I mean like
yeah.
10, 15 years from now.
Yeah, there's a few in there. There's a few. I mean, uh, unbelievable. Like the catchers, honestly, like Bender and Villar, like those guys know the game very well. I mean, we kind of go back and forth on situations, what we should do, all this kind of stuff, bounce stuff back and forth from between those guys. But yeah, it's a very good group of guys. They're starting to know the game more and more, and that's what's going to be fun for them is when they start to figure out the ins and outs, when to do a slide step changeup, when to do a lob a ball up and then buzz a fastball inside, like all that kind of little things is going to be very fun for them to start figuring out because it'll be even more fun uh, for them to experience it in their own game.
Yeah, you mentioned Addison Kopak, and I was at spring training. He just was an undrafted free agent, his first spring training, and I saw him out there. He was practically running the infield drills for with the coaches. So he was somebody that I thought might come out of that
He
answer.
would be too. Yeah, no, I mean that guy's a spurt of energy. We kind of were in the tough times a little bit there in the middle of the summer, and he came in and kind of took everything on the horns, and he kind of tried to flip the ship around and bring that good energy coming through, and he did, especially to the pitching staff. So obviously that kind of third catcher role kind of come into the game here and there is very important for me personally because those guys are the ones that are in the bullpen a lot of the time catching the pins. So, uh, I mean, hats off to him for him to help me and be able to kind of bounce things off of and get those guys ready for each time they go and take the mound.
He seems like somebody that could do just about anything, though. He played all over the place this year a little bit.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, we were kind of joking with him when he took the outfield spot for the first time about but yeah, no, he took it head on. He took pride in it too, and I think that was the coolest thing to see is that he was out there doing early work, make sure that he was able to be prepared for whatever he needed to do, and he did it.
All right, so just a couple more here. So we always ask the players what their off season looks like. What are you going to work on this off season? Are you going to work on anything to be a better coach? Are you going to go to any seminars, or are there camps for coaches?
Just doing a bunch of reading. I just started getting into some books. I'm reading one right now called Atomic Habits. Just trying to get into that, and then also I'm trying to take some classes here and there on some biomechanical kind of stuff, delivery, working how the body works and all that kind of stuff. So, uh, but yeah, I will say my off season look a little different than the players with two kids running around. So I think the one goal I'm gonna be his dad. So just making sure I take the weight off my wife a little bit.
I see you spent 3 years at Cal State Fullerton. Did you ever finish your degree?
I'm one class away. So
Oh man.
yeah, it's tough because it's the capstone class. So I have to go do a
Project, yeah.
yeah, I have to go do an internship. So
Oh,
just trying to make sure I find the time to do that.
and in
All
the
right.
off season, you're just trying not to throw out your back chasing the kids around, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, these guys are nonstop, so it's fun to be around. They're just kind of like it's funny because I'll make player calls and they're in the background yelling, and I'm like, sorry, it's just Trey. And so all the
Right.
guys know Trey. So
All right, so we got spring training. Camp opens up in about a month and a half. What's the rest of your agenda looking like between now and then?
I'll be out in Arizona in January, mid-January. We have a strength camp going on there for a few weeks, and then I'll buzz home for a little bit, and then kind of get prepped and ready to go, and then I'll be driving down from Sacramento.
Nice. Well, this
That,
time if I
that
see you on the back lots, I'm going to come say hi.
Yeah, please do, please do.
yeah, in that mid January should be right around when fantasy camp makes it up. I made it a couple years back in 22. Haven't been able to make it back there again. I played 20 years of rec ball, so when I went out to play, I was that was my last game, like my last baseball playing, and then I had my hip replaced, so I both hips replaced. I still can't run to. I can hit all day. I just can't run to first base. It's like a drunk monkey. It's really bad. But I'm going to try to make it out to spring training or out to the fantasy camp before I get too old.
Nice. Yeah. No, please do. If you're out there, make sure you say hi. I'll be in the coach's room, but knock on the door. I'll come hang out with you guys. I probably won't keep up with you guys, but I'll come hang out with you
All right.
guys.
Well, hey, Ash, we really appreciate you taking the time. Have a great off season, and we can't wait to watch you coach the guys. You got some kids coming up from Elsinore, up hopefully during the season, and who you guys got there now. Just can't wait to watch what you do with them.
No, I'm stoked. Thanks, guys. I appreciate everything you guys do as well. It's fun to listen to you guys, and I know the guys really enjoy it as well.